thought I was going to be speaking after the Guru. Well, what's absolutely clear is that we ourselves, you know, what they say, from earth we came and from earth we will return. And so our soil is fundamentally important to everything we do. You'll know that the Commonwealth is made up of 56 countries. That's 2.5 billion people, 1/3 of our world, 60% of whom are under the age of 30. We understood that we had been ignoring the beauty of our earth, the importance of our soil, and the degradation of our soil was causing literally billions and then trillions of loss. If you look at the GDP of the world, about 91 trillion, it was devastating to understand that 40 trillion of the losses were due to our degradation of our soil. And the impact on our health and our well-being is extraordinary. So the question for all of us is, how should we refocus on our land? How do we recognize that our land really is the superstar which helps all of us to thrive? Because the 3 Rio conventions had done the most amazing job. But the question was, how was our countries implementing the advice, the support that the conventions were giving? And the truth is, many of our member states who are most in need of the technical expertise didn't have access to it. And many of us were faced with the fact that we had the political will in our countries, but not the opportunity to get the right information in terms of implementation. So I'm really glad that both my brothers are here. The great Guru on the right, because I know he's going to tell us about the beauty of the soil, the nature of the soil, and the mechanics of how it works. And I am absolutely understanding my place, and I'm not going to steal any of his thunder because he's magic. And on my other side is my other brother, who I have 7 brothers, I told people, but I just picked up an 8th, because the work that you have been doing has been extraordinary. So my role was, how do we all come together? And what we've done is we've created the Living Lands Charter, which our 56 countries agreed in Kigali last year to implement. And as a result, the 3 Rio conventions and we are coming together to place that knowledge, that expertise into the hands of our member states so they can implement it. And my other partnership, of course, is going to be with Sadhguru, because he has the magic. So we're putting the magic to turn soil into a superstar. And if any of you saw our Guru on his motorbike going across the world, he has made soil cool. The purpose of the Living Lands Charter is to change the dial. We don't just need the science, the technology, and the know-how to help our communities, particularly our indigenous communities. We also need the money. So what the Commonwealth has done by creating the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub is to get the money for our small and developing states. With just 7.8 million, which for many is just a rounding up figure, we have been able already to deliver into the hands of our member states $322 million, with $500 million in the pipeline. But many of our states who would want to implement the advice given by Ibrahim and the advice given by Sadhguru don't have the money or the ability to do that. So just imagine where we would be if every country had a climate finance advisor, and every country had the knowledge and expertise that we will give them through the Living Lands Charter, and every country then had an action plan to deliver it. So my main message here today is the Commonwealth should be your partner of choice, because if we can come up with the solutions for our 56 countries, we can come up with solutions for the whole world. And we can do this, but we need help. And I'm so glad to be sitting between two superstars who are going to deliver for the Commonwealth and for the world. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Baroness Scotland. Sadhguru, if I might turn to you to tell us more about that magic on how to make soil cool.
Well, namaskaram to all of you. Ibrahim, ma'am. Making soil cool is just the beginning. We have to cool the soil, that is the real thing. Now we're talking about the world getting hot, and it's okay.
It's okay, yeah.
We are talking about the world getting hotter. What is really getting hot? Sun is hot as it should be. Land shouldn't be this hot, but it's getting hot. It is, for statistics and other scientific input, Ibrahim will take care of that. I don't want to venture into that right now. Because it's very important. Common people with their common sense should understand what is the problem. Great scientific data, economic data is not going to get across to common people, especially the people that she's talking about, these 56 nations, who are the biggest sufferers of this consequence. Land is getting hot, why? Simply because it's exposed. So every leaf, every extra leaf that we put on this planet is climate mitigation. One more step towards climate mitigation. Every extra leaf that we put is a positive step towards climate mitigation. But we are busy. I'm not making a irresponsible comment on this, but we're too busy trying to catch the carbon dioxide in the air or in the atmosphere. I'm not saying that's not a challenge, I'm not saying that's not a problem, it is a problem, it needs to be addressed, there's no question about that. But it's always when we come to global action, it's very important that… because when we think of global action, resource will always be a biggest challenge. Both human resource and financial resources will be the biggest challenge. When resource is a challenge, where money produces maximum result, that's where we should do it first. Land and soil. With 1/10 of the money that's being spent right now on climate mitigation, we can turn this land and soil situation around in 8 to 12 years' time, if we go with the right kind of policies. When I say policies, I will make it very simplistic, because complexities are for academics and scientists to handle. People should understand in the simplest possible way how it affects their life. If people don't understand this, you can throw as much scientific jargon as you want, economic data as you want, it's not going to get across to people. So put it very, very simply. The number of people that we are on this planet is increasing. In the last century, we've gone up 4 times over. We do nothing about that. We think it's all right. It would be all right if you could also expand the planet. When I say the planet, I'm not just talking about the size of the planet. 82% of the insect population has vanished in the last 70 years. 92% of the freshwater aquatic life has disappeared in the last 70 years. Microbial life is vanishing at approximately 27,000 species per year. I'm saying we need to understand these are all the foundational life for who we are. That means we cannot live here without them, but they will thrive without us. This is not understood. And land is the place, land or soil is the place where it happens. Now, we have used land and soil in different ways. In the sense, if you excavate any ancient archaeological site, one thing that we always find is burnt clay, pottery. Either simple ones, rudimentary ones or exquisite ones, we find that that is the only way we know what people were doing. So this is what they were doing, that they took the soil and made a pot out of it. Pot is not a small thing. If you had no other container in your life, if you did not know how to hold water except taking it in your hands and drinking from the river or pond, a pot is bigger than a satellite or a supercomputer. Hello? A mud pot is bigger than anything because you could bring water into your home and keep it there. Otherwise, every time you wanted it, you had to go wherever it was. So they made pots out of it. Now we are making many things out of it. Well, the phones that you carry is made out of soil. No, I'm not saying you baked it in your home. I'm just saying anything we have done has come from land. You can call it coal, you can call it oil, you can call it lithium, you can call it gold, you can call it whatever you want, it's all land. We need to identify this, that every resource, just about every resource we are using, no matter what we are making out of it, is all land. So land is not just the farmer's business, land is everybody's business because we are land. The only question is, will we get it now or will we get it only from the maggots when we are buried? This is the only choice we have. If we get it now, we can make a difference. If we get it too late, we make good manure, of course. So, the important thing is to understand there is no substitute for this. There is no other way to handle life. There is no other material to make life. Land, soil is the only way you make life. There is no simply another way to make life happen. If you don't mind can I tell a little story? This happened in 2070. Hello? This happened in 2070. A few scientists sought appointment with God. They got the appointment, they went there and said, "Hey old man, you done pretty well with creation, but everything that you can do, we can also do. It's time you retire." God said, "Oh, is that so? What is it that you can do? Give me a demo." So they took little soil, made a vague form of a human child and did all kinds of things, and the child came alive within a few minutes and cried. God said, "Well, that's very impressive, but first get your own soil." It's simply the basic of life, and unfortunately, that's not been the focus. That has to be the focus, that is the only way we'll find solution. Otherwise, we're addressing different industries. I think, let me say, both of them have official positions, they will be diplomatic, I appreciate that. But I don't hold anything, nobody can fire me or elect me, so I can say what I want. I think largely, I wouldn't say all of it, at least 30 to 50% of climate campaigning, climate funding, climate this thing has been towards favorable industries. And people are going where there is money. People are not going towards solutions, at least 50%, I would say. It's time it shifts to soil and land because that's where the solution is. There is substantial scientific data that if you address soil revitalization, 35 to 40% of climate mitigation will happen in a very short span of time. See, we can talk about fossil fuels and getting rid of it and getting something else, I appreciate that, it has to be done, there's no question about it. That is not even a debate. We definitely have to move. But without significant technological innovations, we're not going to go, we're only going to talk. We're not going to give up our car, we're not going to give up our refrigerator, we're not going to give up the air conditioning even here. We're not going to give up, this is the way we are. So we're not going to move unless significant technological innovations happen. And technological innovation is not something that anybody can time. You can't time it. It can happen in 3 days, it may not happen in a decade. Hello? This is the way it is. Nobody can say, you give me the money, tomorrow I'll come with a solution. There is no such thing. But if you invest in land and soil, we can time the impact. We can time the impact and say in this many years, this much result will definitely happen. So, it is a far more pragmatic way to approach this whole aspect of climate change, but for me, climate change is not even the problem for me. For me, the problem is the life on this planet is vanishing. We think life means just you and me. No, without you and me, planet will flourish. Without all of them, the microbial life, the insect life, the worm life and the plant life, there is no planet. There is no question of other life happening without them. So they are vanishing, that's my concern. Your little hot or cold is not really my concern, but this may be an indicator towards that, that is fine with me. But I'm saying the focus should be how many species have disappeared. Right now they're saying by 22nd century, the beginning of 22nd century, 85% of the species on the planet are threatened. 85. You think you live all by yourself? When 62% of your own body is microbial life, you think you will thrive? Right now, neurologists and microbiome scientists are clearly indicating in another 15 years' time, human software will start collapsing. I'm not talking about your phone or your computer. Your mental capabilities will start collapsing and keeping mental balance will become one of the biggest challenges in 15 years' time. In 35 to 40 years' time, your hardware will start collapsing because the microbiome is going down at a pace that you cannot imagine. So, it's time we act in the direction where we get maximum result, and that's land and soil.
Thank you very much. And as you mentioned, we need to turn our attention to land and soil. Mr. Thiaw, you lead the convention, which is the voice of land in the United Nations system. How do we do that?
The voice of land in the world is here. Patricia, Sadhguru, so nice to listen to you. The world is in trouble. The world is in trouble because of the way we deal with nature and the way we interact with nature. As Sadhguru said, nature does not need us, but we destroy nature. We need it for our lives, for our livelihoods. Every year, 100 million hectares of land is degraded. That's the issue. The issue is that when governments sit down every year to approve their budgets, and the higher the budget, the more prosperous the country is. But when they sit to approve their budgets, they do not consider land and soil as part of their budget. They think that their budget is money. But actually, the wealth of a nation cannot be measured by the amount of money that is on the table today. If you continue to degrade your land and to degrade nature and to destroy the natural capital, which is the foundation of your today's budget, then you can imagine the future that you will leave to your children and your grandchildren. So the yardstick that we are using today to measure the prosperity of the nations is wrong. It is measured as to how much we can extract, either oil or gold or minerals or what. It is measured as to how many trillions of dollars are on the table today. But imagine, these are all finite resources. And we are 8 billion people on Earth today, moving to perhaps more. Moving to more, for sure. Maybe perhaps up to 9. So how much is available today for the unborn? And how much of their food are we eating? And how much of their wealth are we destroying? It's when you go to these negotiations, be it desertification or climate and so forth, you talk to diplomats or negotiators and so forth, it's all very important, but you bring back to earth. When you come back to earth, then you realize that what you are negotiating is all about life. It's not about the trillions of dollars. It's not about how many weapons that nation has. And yet this is how we measure our power today. Our power today is measured against how much we are able to destroy ourselves, not how much we are able to build the future. So, Zenya, the discussion today is very clear and encouraging, and I would much prefer listening to them than repeating what I have been repeating every year. Our future and the future of our children and the future generations depends on how much we interact with nature. Our interaction with nature has been extraction. For centuries we have been extracting. For centuries we have been expanding the land that we have been using. For centuries we have been destroying forests and wetlands and rivers, thinking that these are infinite resources. But we have come to realize that there is no colony anymore. There is no new land you can colonize anymore. We are not yet in Mars. So it is important that we actually reconsider the way we have been interacting. And when we say we, it's all of us. It is, of course, the responsibility of those who are in government, who are in power, to actually adopt policies and provide us with the directions. But it is the responsibility of each and every one of us. The way we eat, the way we interact with nature, how much food do we waste, how many clothes do we have in our closets? Do we realize that our clothes are land and water? How many t-shirts are we going to buy tomorrow if we don't need them, or we wear them only once and we discard them? And we think that we are donating. Yes, we can put it in a, just think that, yeah, this will go to another person. But actually, the second-hand clothes that we are discarding and that is being distributed from around the world is destroying nature somewhere else. And maybe competing with the textile industry that should have been developed in that country that is growing the cotton in the first place, but unable to manage. So we live in a very complex world where we actually should consider everything that we do, every single gesture that we have that may have an impact on nature. It can be measured by how much land and how much water, therefore how much air. So the food you eat, the animal feed, the fiber you use is really what matters to us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All of you have actually focused on the need to change mindsets and to really refocus our attention, refocus our energies on the issue of land and soil. How can we really reach those hearts and minds in your mind? Just maybe some brief reflections, starting with Baroness Scotland, please.
Well, the thing that I am really so delighted about is that we have reached hearts and minds. The reason that I'm so proud of what we're doing in the Commonwealth is that you actually have 56 countries saying we have to change. We have to listen to nature. We have to help nature thrive. And when I was thinking, well, why is that? I think it is because we have some of the most vulnerable communities in the world in our family. We have 33 small states. 25 of them are island states. And these countries are literally dying. This isn't an existential threat for tomorrow. For them, it's an existential threat today. I'll give you an example of my own country of birth. I was born in a very beautiful island, Commonwealth of Dominica, only about 72,000 people. It is rich, and it's called the nature island of the Caribbean. People say it's the only island that Christopher Columbus would still recognize, and that's because nothing's changed. So we have virgin forests, we've got the only boiling lake, well, two boiling lakes in the world, beautiful waterfalls, flora, fauna, and it's the only place where the sperm whales come to regenerate. In 2015, Dominica was hit by tropical storm Erica. It destroyed 95% of the GDP. 2 years later, in 2017, Dominica was hit by the then biggest hurricane the world had ever seen, and it destroyed 226% of the GDP. But it's not the money. It's what it did to the life cycle of Dominica, which was a very precious part of our world, which still held the essence of who we are and what we are. We still have indigenous people in Dominica. I am part indigenous Caribbean. And that culture was extremely important because our indigenous people have remained the guardians of our world. When we, with our technology, have ignored nature, have not listened to her, have not watched her, have not seen her, indigenous people around the world have, and they've been shouting at us, telling us that nature was dying, that our land was dying, and that we had to have a regenerative approach to development if we were to reverse the cataclysmic impact we were having. So what did these small islands do? And there are many, there's stories of all the 5 island states are similar. They were knocking on the door of the big states and saying, listen to me, help me, my culture, my people are dying, and unless you change, nothing will happen. And if we look back before the first COP, it was the Commonwealth in 1989 in Langkawi, in Malaysia, who said, if we do not stop, the existential threat that we face will be real. And I'd invite all of you to look and read that Langkawi Declaration, because it really tracked what has happened in the last 30 years. And it is perhaps one of the only place where small countries, poor countries, developing countries from the 5 regions sit around the same table as equals. And when the leaders went into retreat, they were able to say eye to eye, are you really willing for those of us around the table to die and to say goodbye to us? So in 1989, we in effect had the first IPCC and the first COP. It took the world 3 years. So why am I hopeful now? Because that Living Lands Charter isn't just a charter, it is a call to action. It's a call to action for every single one of our member states. But Sadhguru is amazing. I went to see what he is doing in India with farmers. He is reigniting the passion of farmers for the land, because our farmers have been told that they're ignorant, they're stupid, that which they have been doing for millennia is wrong, that we should use pesticides, we shouldn't have, we should only have monocrops, we shouldn't use the old traditional methods tried and tested. And what do our scientists now tell us? That our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers were right and we were wrong. So what is happening here at COP is extraordinary because the people coming together are extraordinary. If you look around this room, we have people from every race, every region, and that's what's happening. We're waking up. And I think it's really important for us never to sleep. We can't afford to sleep, because if we sleep, we won't have a future. And I have to tell you, I thank God every day for champions like Sadhguru, for champions like Ibrahim, for the others who have been willing to say, not in our name, we will share our knowledge, our expertise, our determination, and we will change the cycle. And so be very clear, every single one of us has a role to play, and it won't happen unless we make it happen. And I'm so grateful to all of you, grateful to you, Ibrahim, and even more grateful to Sadhguru, because you touch so many lives and people listen. So I hope what all of us will do in this room is we'll understand that we are the arbiters of our future. That, as Mandela said, the impossible is only impossible until it's done. And we're going to do this.
Thank you so much for these inspirational words. Last time we had the honor of having Sadhguru at the UNCCD COP. It was in Abidjan last year, after a very epic journey on a motorcycle that was mentioned earlier, I believe in excess of 5,000 miles. So as we stand on the threshold of 2024, oh, please correct me on the mileage there, please. As we stand on the threshold of 2024, what are some of the plans that are in store for you?
So we have, as ma'am also said, if you touch people's hearts, if you make them aware, and if no action comes forth, it will lead to enormous frustration. We're on that threshold. Substantial awareness has been done that there is a certain fatigue in people. Okay, all right, what to do? If we have to die, we will die, what to do? This is the kind of thing you hear. Because anyway you guys are not going to do anything, you go on telling us this is going to happen, that is going to happen, but what is it that's being done? No, we are still talking about it, we are still researching it, we are still working in the lab. That time is over. There is no time for simply endless conversations about the same thing. It's time for action. Action will not happen unless the governments and the businesses and every other force comes together. I'm not trying to give a commentary, but when governments and businesses meet, it is a chess game of geopolitics, it's a chess game of economic power. This has been our way. I'm not trying to comment on any particular groups of people. So if we have to go beyond this, somebody who is not an vested interest, somebody who is not against anything. I keep telling people, a whole lot of people saying, Sadhguru, we must wage a war against climate change. I said, already we have enough trouble, you want to start a war now? No, we will fight. I said, no fight. The most important thing is, as a generation, we have to come together if we want a solution. If you think you are consuming, because you're right under the lights, you're consuming more electricity than me and I'll campaign against you, you will do something against me. There's no end to this. We've done enough of this nonsense. So we need voices, we need forces which are not vested interests, they have nothing to gain from what happens or doesn't happen. Those voices must get the necessary ability to set the agenda so that… See, geopolitics and wars and fights we have had in the world are bitter memories that very few people can leave that and move on. When we start talking, those memories come back. What you did to my grandfather, I'm not forgetting it, all right? But what we are doing to our children, this is the problem. We cannot fix the injustice that we did to our fathers and grandfathers, but we need not perpetuate that injustice to the future generations. And when I say generations, I'm not talking about only human species. We must understand we are here as a unified collective life. We are not separate life, we are not an independent life. We are dependent on everything else. They are not dependent on us, we are dependent on them. They are a wealth. We are enjoying that wealth as life. I'm saying not wealth means the wealth that we have. This life itself is the greatest wealth. This wealth is a consequence of all the things that they're doing. If they stop working, if they start saying we will do only 36 hours a week, we're finished. Hello? There's a big debate about this in India right now. How many hours should we work? Human beings are talking about how many hours should we work. If the microbiome, the insects and the worms say we will work only 36 hours a week, we are finished. All right? So, it is important we understand we need to bring some comfort to them. When I say comfort, right now because global warming seems to be the only concern, everybody is saying 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, 2.9 degrees, whatever degrees. We do not know exactly how many degrees, but it's going up for sure, all right? If people do not know what it is about all the science and aspects of it, they just have to go and stand in the hot sun for 1 hour, then walk under the shade of a tree. They will know the difference. This is all we need to do. More land needs to come under shade, more moisture in the land, more shade, no plowing, exposure. First 18 inches has almost 80% of the microbial life. Our machines are plowing 12 to 14 inches deep and leaving it open for months on end. This is genocide. It is genocide of not only the organisms, it's human genocide being conducted in a future time. It is. We always think these famines and droughts will happen to some remote place in Africa, it's not our business. No, it's going to happen everywhere. We must understand right now most nations which consider themselves to have very good living standards are not producing their own food. If food is not growing where people are, you're waiting for a disaster. It just takes a little bit of upheaval that your whole apple cart will be gone. And we are not just talking about little less food or whatever. When food shortages happen, we are talking about a collapse of civilization. We will forget that we are human. Once there is food shortage on the street, we won't be human, we'll be worse than animals. Animals never do that anyway, why should we compare ourselves to such wonderful creatures? They never do anything in excess, they do only what's needed. We are the ones who are doing it, but once food shortages begin to manifest, which every UN agency has been screaming for last 2 decades, that in the next 40–45 years' time, there could be 40% drop in food production. If that happens, with nearly 10 billion population, oh, it's not a world I want to be in, I would like to be gone by then, really. It's not a place to live. It is definitely not a place to live who is sensitive to others' suffering. It is definitely not a place to live. And there will be nothing much we can do once it starts manifesting. So the most important thing is, when we think of life, we shouldn't stop thinking just human life, human life, human life. We must understand only if all other lives thrive, we thrive. There is no other way. If anybody is coming up with a technological solution, let them do it, but there is no other way. I'm saying this absolutely. There is no other way, because that is the fundamental structure of life. Life is built on the tiniest life, it's built on one on top of the other. You cannot change that structure. There is no way you can do that. Because everybody keep asking, Sadhguru, is there a technological structure? Can AI find a solution for all this? For dumb things that you do, AI is not a solution. If you're doing something smart, you can extend it with artificial intelligence. You cannot solve all the dumb things that you're doing with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence will multiply your dumbness. It will not take it away. Hello? It will not. So this is very important that we understand, this is not about just awareness, it's time for action. If COP next 16 is coming, this COP 28 is still on the way, if you think this is the fulcrum of change, we must push for action, not going on more conversations and more conversations. Even this whole fetish for research must stop. I'm telling you, I'm not a scientist. I kept myself free of such things, consciously. I am not a scientist, I am not an environmentalist, I am not an activist. I am just as much as a worm on this planet. But I'm asking you a simple question. Do you think a worm knows more about the soil that it lives in, or a scientist knows more about it? When your life depends on it, you know what it is, all right? So I crawled on this planet for over 6.5 decades. I know what it does. I don't have to interpret this in some great scientific jargon. See, we are getting lost in our own knowledge. The burden of knowledge is just killing us. Simply piling up more and more data, what will you do with it? We know this is happening. If I take a handful of soil, I know whether this is alive or it's dying. Why do you need data for this? Any farmer who lived on his land knows this. But no, their experience of thousands of years of feeding this humanity is not enough. Somebody who's done nothing except a PhD somewhere, his opinion is more important. Why? People are living on the land. They know if they take the soil in their hand, they know whether this is alive or not. Why is that not important? No, it has to come with millions of dollars of research, and some two-bit student who just got a PhD is going to come out with a solution. This has to stop. If you don't stop this, we will waste our time talking about it, looking at test tubes and conical flasks, not looking at the land, which is dying in front of our eyes.
Thank you very much for these very thought-provoking remarks, and I think there was a mention, a recurring theme again, that yes, it is time for action. So, Mr. Thiaw, what is your call to action to those of us here at COP28, for those of us who are following this event online, and those of us who will be also…
Let me take this opportunity to say hello to all of those who are not physically in the room here, but are part of this conversation. We are here in Dubai in the Land and Drought Pavilion, and it's really fitting to have a discussion about soil. Our life, someone said, not me, depends on two things: few centimeters of soil and few millimeters of water, rain. The problem we are having, as Sadhguru said, is that we are so clever and ingenious that we think that we should plow the land in order to increase the productivity. We think that we should throw a lot of pesticides and chemicals in order to increase the productivity. And we created green revolutions all over the world because we needed to feed more people. Except in the longer term, or even medium term, not long, but really what we are doing is to kill the land. So we may have increased the productivity for a few years, but on the longer term, we are actually destroying the natural capital, which is the foundation. So the few centimeters of land, of soil, are being destroyed by our own hands and our own creativity. The few millimeters of rain are actually problematic right now with all the droughts we are seeing from around the world. So in some parts of the world, we still have a little bit of soil, but there's no rain anymore. There's not enough water in the world today. And as you know, the next big war in the world will come for land and water. Because there is no Cold War anymore. There is no liberation movement anymore. What is really the main concern today in terms of security is the environment, destruction of the environment, destruction of the living, climate change. This is really one of the main challenges we have today. What is our problem today is that the land that was feeding us, that is still feeding us, nourishing us, is actually going to kill us. How? When you degrade your land to the point that you see sand dunes and desert storms and the small particles that are coming back to your body and infecting your respiratory organs, then you realize that your own land is killing you. When you have such a degradation of the environment that you have dirty water instead of clean water, so the quality of the water is deteriorating. The water that you were able to drink without any treatment is now to be treated 10 times before you are able to drink it. It is an indicator that you have destroyed your environment. So in a way, we are doing things with the left hand that is really impacting us from the right hand side. The next opportunity we have to actually have a long discussion about this, much longer than we have here today, is in 1 year from now, December 2024, COP16 of the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, which will take place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to 2 weeks of discussion. But before we get to Riyadh, I want you and all of you as leaders to actually think about how we can prepare ourselves, bring farmers, pastoralists, those who produce and know the land from their hand, don't need a PhD, those who know how to produce food, how to process that food, those who actually produce the cotton and not necessarily get the value chains and all the income that is generated by the fast fashion of the world today, including those who are doing the fast fashion. They all should come to Riyadh and have a conversation. But before they get to Riyadh, please engage, please have a conversation, and please help shape the policies that are going to be adopted by governments. Because governments listen to their people. You have the weapons, the most powerful weapon that you have is your voting card. So if you are engaged, please express yourself.
Is now starting.
Okay, I'm in trouble. If you are really concerned about these issues of land and drought and how it affects us, please express yourself and get ready for COP16 in December 2024 in Riyadh. Please come, but do more than just coming. Please prepare yourself and prepare everybody else. So Sadhguru and Patricia, if I may, I really want you, respectively, through the Commonwealth, 56 nations and 2.5 billion people. Sadhguru has 4 million of them, 5 million of them following him on social media. Billion of them following on social media. Yeah, so million is. So it is important that you engage that community, prepare them, and get ready with some proposals to government before they come to COP, but while they are in COP16 as well in Riyadh. So this is how we collectively can transform the discussions to here that we have here into concrete decisions that will shape policies back at the national level. Because leaders will be invited, as they did here. So when they come, they may have some conversations, before they come, but most importantly, when they go back home, they will have more conversations, and they will probably have some conversations with those leaders who are the voting cards. The real leaders are the ones that have the voting cards. They elect people. So people that are elected are not the real leaders. The leaders are really those who put them in charge. So we have in common that possibility of shaping the agenda, of shaping policies, and certainly use the platform of the UNCCD COP all COPs are important. 197 parties will come there. It's the whole world, it's universal. So express yourself. We all, from 197 parties, have one thing in common, the one planet. We all have one thing in common. We all live on earth, on land. We don't live on the sea. We are a terrestrial species. So we are destroying the foundation upon which we are born, we grow up with, and probably we will return when we die. We don't know when it will happen. But before we go, please think about our children and our grandchildren and what we are going to leave behind for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thiaw. And on this note, I believe really it is some other parting words.
No, I just want to say that the Commonwealth Living Lands Charter is a call to action. We've just issued the framework. That framework, which is participating the 3 Rio Conventions, provides policies and implementation strategies. So please look at it, join us, and be part of the call for living lands. That's one. The second is to say, just to reassure Sadhguru, that what's amazing is that the good researchers and scientists are now listening to nature and to farmers, and surprise, surprise, they are getting the empirical data to tell us that everything our grandparents and our great-great-great-great-grandparents was right, and that what we've been doing was probably wrong. So now we can just implement what nature has told us we need to do, and that is to provide a regenerative approach to development which will save soil, which is Sadhguru's call. Save nature, and in doing so, we will save ourselves. Thank you.
If I can say something. I did mention this in COP15 at Cote d'Ivoire also. One So, one important thing that I mentioned there also, but it is in the nature of the organizations and the governmental structures that we have created, that policies tend to get so mad in language and data that we must first of all understand, doesn't matter, I'm not against the scientists. The scientists can produce as much data as they can, the academics can write things about it, make many theories about it, but when it comes to implementation, it can only be implemented by the farmer. So if it has to be implemented at the farm level, the most important thing is, it must be simple, one-pointed and incentive-based. If we don't do this, we will be talking and talking for centuries to come, if we live that long.
Thank you very much. And for these inspiring words, another quick comment, Mr.
Just to thank very much Sadhguru and Patricia Scotland for this wonderful conversation, to thank you for your leadership, and to thank you for the vision you are giving to many. You know, I know you are both very humble, but the impact you are having in the world today and the vision that you are sharing with the rest of the world, not only in this room, but the other people that are following us on live, but more importantly even on YouTube later on, to think that the leadership you are providing us today is really seeds for tomorrow. It is land, soil is not dirt. Land, soil is not only worms, but it is important that we all consider how we should contribute to managing this. So thank you very much for your participation. Thank you for your leadership. Please join me, join Zenya, all of us, join your hands in thanking the leadership. Thank you.
No, it's true. It's true. Everybody.
especially me.
Tell me that, you are everybody.
No. I'm just one of billions. Give hope, to give inspiration,
Hope we create a solution.
Yes, we need a little bit of your magic.